Good afternoon and welcome to today's ICANN ASCA webinar series, Stepping Up School Counselor Advocacy, How to Implement Advocacy in Your Program Every Day. Today we have Susan Langen, the ASCA Advocacy Chair and Cedar Falls High School Counselor with us today, and she's going to lead the discussion. Before I turn it over to Susan, just a few housekeeping. We're going to keep everyone on mute to hold back background noise. If you have questions, you can type them into the question area and they will be addressed throughout the presentation, or at the end Susan can open it up for questions. So I'm going to hand it over to Susan, and thank you all for joining us.
All right, thank you, Brett, for that nice introduction. And I would echo that if you do have questions, please write in the box, or I'm gonna share a Padlet too, that if you have questions, you can write on that, and I can actually see that when we're going through the presentation. But I just thank you all very much for tuning in. And just to get started, I would share just a brief story about my advocacy story. I've been a counselor I've been in my actually 33rd year of education, and I've been a school counselor here at Cedar Falls High School. This is my 22nd year, and I always did, kind of the things that I was supposed to do for advocacy. When people said, oh, you should write your legislators and do different things, I always did that. And when I heard the word advocacy, even I kind of, thought it mostly meant legislative stuff. But then some of you might know about, I went through the president of ASCA and was also the president-elect, president, and past president. And when you do that, you get to go to ASCA and you get some special kinds of trainings, and found out that advocacy means a lot more than just the legislative things that you do. And so it's really become a passion of mine, and I love to talk about the advocacy. And I also have a lot of other people that have shared their ideas and things, and hopefully all of you will kind of have a chance to share some of your ideas, because everybody's doing advocacy and we all need to do more of it. And it's always hard to fit one more thing in your day, but a lot of times it's something pretty easily that can fit. So, but before we get started, here's what I would want you to do. I want you to just maybe take just a breath of fresh air and just kind of relax and breathe. I know I've talked to a lot of counselors and a lot of people who it's kind of a stressful time, and it's a little bit busy time of year, and so just to maybe take a step back, the picture with the "How are you today? I am great, really wonderful." I actually made that into a poster. I had a student who was a special needs student, and he was just always so cheerful, and I'd always ask him, "How are you today?" and he'd say, "I am greatly wonderful." And so I thought, what a perfect picture to put up with the branches and just kind of have you maybe stop and think about your day, because he was always very positive, even though he had a lot of challenges. The second one I found last night when I was looking through some pictures, I think, again, we are so busy some days, and there's so many challenges that face us as school counselors, whether it be the scheduling and the academic part, to the personal, social, and the mental health issues that our students are facing. I mean, some days it's literally, I go home thinking, oh my gosh, did I get anything done today that was productive, or was I just being responsive all day? And sometimes we just need to kind of slow down. And then the other thing that the technology stuff is great, and I love technology and I use it all the time, but sometimes it can be very annoying too, because it can be very distracting. And my pet peeve is sitting in a meeting and having people talk about things and then get interrupted all the time by technology. So even though it's a great thing, it sometimes is very distracting. So and just the last slide before we get totally started on the webinar is, just like what they say, you need to take care of yourself before you can help other people. And I think that's just a reminder that make sure you are taking care of yourself and taking that time and still continuing to work hard, but make sure you do take care of yourself, because there's a lot of stuff that is going on. And there's a lot of stuff going on nationally and in our state. It is a great time to be a school counselor. Many of you probably know that a year ago, last summer, Michelle Obama was actually our speaker at the American School Counselor Association conference, and she talked about her initiative called Reach Higher, which is trying to making sure that all students get a chance to be college and career ready. And so there's just a lot of really neat things going on right now. And Britt and I were just talking about, President Obama was actually at North Des Moines High School the other day and talking about college access and affordability. And there's lots of changes coming down the pike with the FAFSA, but it's just very exciting. And he mentioned school counselors a couple times, which is even better. But we also need to make sure that when we are in the forefront and things are going on, that we're doing the right things and that we're advocating to do what school counselors need to be doing. I do want to put out a little plug for the website. The ASCA website is a really good resource, and there's a lot of stuff. There's lots of things on there that can be very helpful to you. I'm going to show you the Advocacy website, which we are still working on that. We're still doing some different things on that. It's kind of slow. See, I told you, Britt, it's a little bit slow. But there's some different things legislatively. There's also some other some other things that the blog. There's a link to the blog. I'm going to talk about that, but I wanted to show you that real quick because there's a lot of things on the blog that you can get good ideas for different things that you do in your school. But make sure you mark that ASCA website, and if you're not an ASCA member, I would definitely encourage you to join ASCA. It's very reasonable, and there's the website has a members only section that also has some really good things. But there's just, like I said, there's lots of good things on here that can be very helpful to you as you kind of go through and different ideas. And then so there's the ASCA website there, and then like I said, the Advocacy website. We also did a little bit of a survey asking last year about what kinds of things did you do for the legislative advocacy, and I would appreciate if you went on that if you haven't and just gave us your ideas if you did contact the legislators. If not, it's like a real quick and easy survey, but we just need some information to plan for this year, because the lobbyists, that's a pretty exciting thing. I'm going to talk about that just real briefly at the very end, and we just need feedback on that. So Britt did send out a link for a Padlet, and if any of you have ever used the Padlet, if you go to that, it's kind of like a bulletin board that you can click on, and you can just kind of write things, and whoops, sorry, I slipped ahead, write different things about what's going on. And so if you want to write, I've got my Padlet up, and this is a screenshot, so I can't write on it, but all you do is double click and you can write anything on there. So you could write things that you do, you could write questions, you could write, ask for ideas for specific things, but hopefully people will write some things, and then we can share that later on, because it really is a good, it's kind of like I said, a Google Doc, but it's a lot prettier. So we'll use that as well. Okay. And then also I want to put in a plug for the American School Counselor Association. If you're not a member of that, again, it's the national professional organization that provides insurance for the yearly dues. It has a great website, resources, it gives you the communication. It's just really everything you need. If you have questions or things, you could even call them. They really are very member responsive, and just have lots of things. They have webinars, they have training kinds of things, but they're really, really good, because anytime anything you do with school counseling, you want to make sure that it's falling under the umbrella of the Developmental Comprehensive School Counseling Program. And I hope all of this little picture that's on the screen right now is familiar to everybody, that everybody's aware of what the ASCA model is, and the accountability delivery system, foundation, and management system, and then obviously the ones around the corner, the advocacy, leadership, collaboration, and systematic change, because they all are intertwined and they go together. But the advocacy is something that I think a lot of people don't totally understand and they don't do enough of. So everything falls under that developmental comprehensive school program. And if you go to the school counseling ASCA school counseling website, there are tons of resources. One of them is coming up right now, and it is they have handouts, very simple, that you can print off on what it is that you're doing, the description of the foundation, the management. These are things that you can use for your administrators, for community people, for parents even, depending on what the situation is. But I love the page here where it's appropriate activities for school counselors and inappropriate activities. That's a great way to start a discussion with your administrators. But that's just one handout that the American School Counselor Association has. They also have sections on their website of why elementary school counselors, why middle school counselors, and they just have a lot of really good resources. So if you're not using looking at the ASCA website and the ASCA website, make sure that you do that. So when you start with school counselor advocacy too, you also need to hopefully make sure that you're all using the term school counselor. And I apologize if at a time if this is offensive to anybody, but if you're using guidance counselor, you need to change it to school counselor. And there's nothing bad about being a guidance counselor. There's a lot of stereotypes that are associated with it, and there's also a lot of history associated with it. And it was never a bad thing to be a guidance counselor. When we started that job in the 60s, when things kind of turned around, and Sputnik and counselors were hired to get students into math and science, that was their job. And things have evolved, and we've been trying to work it for the last 20 years or so in understanding that our school counselor role has changed, and that we need to also change the name. If you don't know, the man in the picture is Norm Geisbergs. He's from Missouri, and he is like in his 90s. He is like the father of comprehensive school guidance and counseling, and he's written books, and he still presents at ASCA conferences. This was actually taken 2 years ago with Sue Farron, who was a past ASCA president, and he talks about how the developmental school counseling program has been around for a long time, and the different components of it. What's new the last few years is the data piece, and collecting the data and making sure that we can show the difference that we make. So just please, if like I said, if you're offended by that, I apologize, but you really do need to change and make sure that you're using school counselor. It has been a state official change on the state Department of Education website, and it's going to be hopefully changed throughout all the documents and everything as well. So finally, into slide 14, and it's finally, what is advocacy? And like I said, a lot of people think advocacy just has to do with the legislative efforts that go on, and that is a very big part of advocacy, but it's also something that you need to be doing every day, and you need to be sharing with your students, with your staff, with your administrators, your parents, and your community. And the big questions are, because of the school counseling program, how are the students different? How are they achieving better? And how are students better served? So number one, it's always about the students, and it's always about student achievement. And you need to have the data that shows that what you're doing makes a difference. It's not just like, oh, I'm going in and I'm teaching about feelings, and I'm teaching about different things. It's like, how does that relate to make sure that students then achieve better? Oh, somebody just wrote on the Padlet, I've changed my email signature to say school counselor, and that is awesome. That is very, very easy thing to do.
I'm just recording the whole thing. I'm not actually participating.
Oh, okay. So that, good for you. And share some other things too. There's lots of stories that it could tell about people in the last few years trying to change the name from school counselor to from guidance counselor. So just again, in thinking about what is the advocacy, to think about your program and who are your stakeholders, who your internal and external, and what are the three things that you would most likely say to your stakeholders. Who are the people that you serve the most, and what do they need to know? I have a wonderful administrative team. I'm actually very fortunate, and I have 3 other counselors that I work with at Cedar Falls High School. We have a 4 counselors in the junior high and then 6 in the elementary. So we have a K-12 team plus a secondary team. Our administrator team, we meet with them once a week, but they haven't always been as knowledgeable about what our role is, and I found that out when we were actually doing some hiring for school counselors. I didn't realize that people didn't understand what we did, and we were interviewing for some jobs, and my one of the principals said, well, Susan, you know, your job is just, I mean, it's pretty much just like a principal. It's just, you know, you guys do a little bit different, you know, more with kids. And I said, boy, that's totally not really true. I mean, we do a lot different things than that administrators. And then another principal said in the hiring process, well, you know, you really only work with at-risk kids because, you know, most of our parents are really good and they take care of all the problems that might come up with their students. So, you know, most of the school counselors are only, you know, for at-risk kids. And again, those questions those statements were like aha moments, because I didn't realize that they didn't understand what we did, and so we had to go back and do some education and really talk about, you know, our roles. But my line always when I do the advocacy things too for the legislators, I always say, you know, my principal down the hall doesn't know what I do, so why would I expect my legislator to know what I do? And it seems a little bit frustrating that we have to be teaching people, but we really do, because people just don't always know. So it is sharing our role with teachers, administrators, school board legislators, and showing them how we can help to reach our educational goals, and then doing it. And it's, you know, people think they don't like to advocate because they think it's bragging or making demands, and it really is not those things at all, and there's a big difference between that, and we'll talk about that a little bit when we talk about School Counselor Week, because that's a perfect time to do some great advocacy, and it's not a time just to, you know, to ask for treats or anything like that. It's a time that you can make sure people know what you're doing. And again, people need to understand what we do so that again they allow us to do the right things. You know, I talked to a lot of counselors across the state and even at the ASCA conferences that, you know, there's a lot of administrators that don't understand the role, and then they're having to you know, do things that aren't really related, as the testing, the subbing. A lot of times counselors are called to sub for teachers, which, you know, again, in a pinch that you can always do that, but, you know, that's not our role, and that takes away from, you know, what we need to be doing. And the testing part, you know, there's things that we should be doing with the testing, but counting out the tests and doing all that coordinating, hopefully there's somebody else that, you know, maybe might be able to do that, because there, and I totally believe in fair share. You know, we have to do our fair share of some of those things, and that's totally part of our job. But when all you're doing is some of the things that are not working with kids and not working with your goals, and they're more clerical things, you really need to stop and make sure that your stakeholders understand the role of the counselor, so that you can make sure it fits with your goals under a comprehensive school counseling program. Somebody else just wrote, it's not bragging, it's about being able to assist students and not count test booklets. I love that, I love that, I love that. And this is one of the things I've kind of learned in the last year or so, because I'm going to share a little bit later. I've been involved in some higher level training for the legislative stuff, and it really is, we have to come across that we're not being whiny about it or like, oh, we're so overworked. We have to come across with data and you know, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we could do if we weren't doing, you know, if we didn't have to do the testing stuff here, we could do something, you know, have a specific situation that we could be doing. And then we help students learn to advocate for themselves, but why can't we advocate for our roles in schools? And that is such a good question, because I think, you know, that a lot of counselors just do not always go into this job thinking that they have to let people know what they do, and plus we're all pretty passionate about our students, and a lot of what we do is confidential, but, you know, we just need, that's why we do the advocacy webinars and kind of let people know that we need to do a better job on that. So Just again, how do we do it? We make those connections between what the stakeholders want and need and the services and supports that we can provide. So here's the thing. Again, I don't want to overwhelm anybody. I don't want them to think, oh my gosh, this is one more thing that I have to put on my plate, and my plate is already really full, and how can I do this when it takes so much time? It does take time, but you're already doing some things that it's probably pretty easy to just make sure that you're letting people know. You need to identify what you're comfortable adding for this year. Again, if you've been a counselor for a long time, you might be able to add a few more things. If you're just starting out, you might just pick a couple things that you want to make sure that you are doing in the advocacy area. And then identify what you are uncomfortable doing, but if you could defeat your fears, and then add some of those to this year's plan. And that is something that I would really encourage you and challenge all of you to do. We had an assembly this morning, and our principal, I had him do the introduction, and it was a great assembly. It was called the It Gets Better program. They're actually at UNI this week, and they're doing performances from the Gay Men's Choir out of California, and the kids were just mesmerized. They loved it. But I had the principal do the introduction, and it was for some of our leadership groups and some of our kids, and talking about what it was. And again, he's an awesome principal, but he said, Susan, you're stretching me here. He said, I'm not as comfortable with some of this stuff. And I said, I know, and that's a good thing, because we all need to be stretched a little bit, and we need to be challenged to get a little uncomfortable and step out of our zone once in a while. So I would identify what you're doing, identify what you're comfortable adding, and then try to maybe add just one thing that you're a little bit uncomfortable doing, so that you can get over the fear and do something a little bit more. And then look at a 3-year advocacy plan. Again, you don't have to write it all down and make sure that you're following things, but do have Sue Farron actually put this together after a presentation from ASCA. I love this, the 5 T's. Talk about the school counseling in your program. Trade advocacy ideas with others. Try a new advocacy strategy each month. Test new ideas and strategies. Talk about what worked. And then team up. Grassroots efforts to advocate every day for school counseling. And there's a lot of things that you could do with other departments in your school, as well as parents and your students. There's lots of things that you can do. So make sure that you're not just having to do it all yourself. This form, this is something that we developed a couple years ago, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the multi-tiered system for identifying students, and also the RTI system. So we thought we would put together kind of a level system for advocacy. And if you look under the first level, and maybe again, write on the Padlet if you would, what are some things that you do in level 1? Those are the simple things. Making sure that you're visible to your parents, to your students, making sure you're visible to your teachers. Some days I always feel like I don't even get out of my office, and that's not a good thing. I need to make sure and get down to the lunchroom and go in and talk to teachers in their classrooms, or in their offices and things like that. If you haven't developed a program brochure, there's lots of models and different ones that you can use, just to let people know again what you did. I'm gonna show an example. We actually did a picture thing this year with all of the counselors' pictures on it. Oh, it says I tweet, but it doesn't show up on Iowa, the ASCA tweets. Yeah, we're working on that. We're trying to make sure that the ASCA tweets are making sure that they show up. But the tweeting is a great way, the social media. We'll talk about that too. Celebrate National School Counselors Conference, or Counselor Week. I have a whole slide just dedicated for that. Print business cards. Those are really, really easy things, and make sure you have school counselor on that. ASCA actually took out the professional school counselor, the professional word out of school counselor this summer. They had it discussion during their when the presidents were all there from all the different states, and they decided to take out, instead of professional school counselor, it's just school counselor at this point, which there's a lot of opinions about that, but school counselor made it sound just a little bit more you know, because they don't say professional teacher or professional administrator, and so they added just school counselor. So, you know, either one I think is good, but, you know, if you want to follow along with the ASCA, it's using school counselor. Social media, some other people, you know, again, the social media is great, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, you know, but joining the ASCA, joining ASCA, joining Iowa ACAC is another thing, another group that's very helpful to counselors. We have a lot of groups that are very, you know, that we depend on and that they depend on us, so those things are really important. Consistent communication and conversations with administrators and staff. And I shared, so after we did the, you know, after we hired some people, and I found out that my principals really didn't always understand what school counselors did, we had some conversations, and I tell you what, those were not exactly fun conversations, but I had printed off some of the things from ASCA, and you know, we went through it and we talked about it, and you know, we just made sure and educated them what a school counselor's job was. And like I said, it was a little bit difficult. I had a little bit of a stomach ache going into that meeting, but afterwards it really did help. And there's still, you know, some things that we always need to talk about, but for the most part, you know, you got to take that step, because if your principal doesn't understand what you do and doesn't understand the things that you're doing on a daily basis, then you're going to maybe have some things put on your plate that, you know, maybe might be good for the principal, but maybe not good for you. And somebody else wrote, drink out of my red ASCA coffee mug, and great to travel and wear your ASCA shirt. And, you know, those are such simple things, like I said, that you can do. Politely correct folks with school counselor. When I hear guidance counselor, hope they ask me why the change. And that's a really good thing, too. I know, you know, Trista Thompson from Fort Dodge is a great advocate for making people change to school counselor from guidance counselor. She just recently works with Naviance, and they got it changed in their system. But she, you know, again, you can do it very politely, and you can give lots of reasons, and if people need any information, you know, we're going to actually work on a page for the website and giving information on why we should do that. Just again, with that level 1, going through and making sure that you have an advisory committee, you know, following along the components of the comprehensive school program, you know, making sure you're doing some of those things as well. And then level 2, you know, making sure again that you're following along with the program, that you are participating in setting your goals aligned with your district goals, that you're, you know, working, if some of your schools have PLC, professional learning committees, making sure you do a management agreement with your principals so you understand what you know what you're going to be doing during the year. The time analysis, I know people do not always enjoy doing the time analysis. I feel like sometimes even my counselors, they don't like doing that, and I don't like doing it because it is hard. You have to, you know, every 15 minutes or every half an hour write down what you're doing and put it in a category. But it is such helpful information, and you should be doing that at least once a year, maybe even more than that. A lot of people do it a lot more times, and you need to do that so that you can really determine what you're spending your time on. And it's just like, you know, when you're, you know, going through, if you're trying to lose weight or something, you know, when you write it down, you actually see what you're doing, and there's lots of really easy forms out there to do your time analysis. And when you share that with your administrators and with your stakeholders, you know, if there's things that you're doing that are not totally appropriate with school counseling jobs, then, you know, that time analysis will hopefully show that. And you can also give things that you could be doing that would be more beneficial to students. I'm going to share a little bit of my presentation, or that we gave to our staff this year at the beginning of the year, and just kind of give you some ideas. You know, the other things, hopefully you're all members of your building leadership teams, or in your schools or your districts. That's totally important, you know, to be involved in that, because you have a much different perspective than a classroom teacher or a principal. I mean, you see a overall perspective, and you will see kids when they come in and talk about the classes and all that kind of stuff. So you really need to be a part of those building leadership teams and be a part of decisions that are made, you know, for what happens in your school. And then the legislative stuff, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that at the very end, because it is something that you do need to continue to do, but it is, you know, the advocacy is more than about just the legislative stuff. And then level 3, that your school counseling program is not just about you. It's it's not just about the school counselor. It's hopefully an integral part of your school and your community, and your teachers know what it is that you're doing, and that your standards and your lessons and all that fit into the mindsets and behaviors, which is something new. You need to consistently demonstrate how students are different because of the school counseling program. We do have some counselors in Iowa that are RAMP winners. RAMP is the ASCA, recognized ASCA model program, and we do have some from Des Moines. I think we have some from the Clinton, Bettendorf area, and this is a lot of work to put it together, but it's a really neat thing for schools to do, because it really helps you put it all together and show. You need to know what's going on in the Department of Education. Right now we just got a new person, and he's going to be, Ryan Wise is going to be at the ASCA conference in November, and we need to, again, let them know. You think people would know what school counselors do, but that's the aha moment for me, was that you always have to be educating people and kind of keeping that conversation going. And then the legislators and just even at the federal level, and kind of knowing what's going on. So this is kind of a neat chart, and I would encourage you to put this up. It's just something that like I said, we came up with from our committee, and it really is just kind of puts things a little bit more into perspective. We talked a little bit about the technology. You need to get comfortable using the social media. Have a Twitter, a Facebook, blogs are really helpful. S'more, if you don't know what S'more is, I'm going to show you a picture of my S'more. I actually broke down, you can get 5 free flyers for S'more. They're electronic flyers, and they are so slick. They just, again, a little bit different than just a Google Doc, but they or a poster that you're putting out, and you get 5 free ones, but you can also get for $38 a year, you can get as many as you want, and so you can also be able to print it out a little bit more. So if you have any kind of a budget, you might want to look at that, because it is something that students will look at, and plus students and parents will look at a little bit more, and plus it gives you, like, every so many views, it'll send you a little email and say, oh, your S'more flyer just got its 250th view. So that helps you, kind of keep track too of what people are looking at and what they aren't looking at. And Pinterest, which I think I spelled that wrong, again, there's so many ideas and things in there that you can use. The Google Docs, Google Forms, the Excel spreadsheets, and the Prezzies, you need to get familiar with the PowerPoints and all that kind of stuff. And if not, take a class. there's lots of ways that you can learn about those things. If your AEAs are not sponsoring those, if ISCA's not sponsoring those, look around at community college, look at different things, but you need to make sure that you're working smarter, not harder, and knowing how to do those things and use those things are going to be helpful to you. There is Facebook pages for every level. I don't know if everybody's on Facebook, but there's a high school counselors network, there's an elementary school counselor exchange, and a caught in the middle. And these, I like these are awesome pages that you can follow to get good ideas, but I would just caution you a little bit too, because they're people from all over, and they're regular counselors, but not everything they say or do is going to be maybe what you agree with. And I know that every once in a while there'll be something on there that's like, whoa, I don't know if that's something that would be quite appropriate, but they do give you good ideas, and like I said, they have files and different stuff that you never know, what might come across there. And I know I've even put questions on there before, and you do get lots of answers back, and it just kind of helps you put in perspective what where we're at. Somebody just put on the Padlet, reading from the Facebook sites makes me happy. I'm in Iowa, and that I would echo. We get a little nervous in May if we don't have our schedule done for the next year, because we try to make sure we have it done before the kids leave in May. And people are writing in there, they don't even have their schedule done in August, and kids are even starting back to school. So yeah, it does give you a little bit of perspective. But again, use the social media. There's Twitter. I can get on Twitter and find an idea from something, just browsing through that. I mean, there's always good things on Twitter that you can find, and there's ways to, you know, do all the sorting and stuff like that. These are just a couple examples of things that we did at the high school, Cedar Falls High School. We made a poster that has all of our office hours on it, our secretary. It has all our names and contact information, and then on the side it has our Facebook, our Twitter, our blog, and our website. We have a big poster in the hallway of little ones, and then we also have that on the website. I put the school counseling department sign because it took a long time for us to get the school counseling department sign, but persistence, it used to be guidance, they had to take it down, and we finally got that up last year. The sticker, we use the stickers every year for School Counseling Week, but they're also kind of fun to give out to other times during the year. And if your AEA doesn't have that, AEA 267 has a person, and I don't know if they can do the billing or whatever, but Lindsay O'Regan is awesome at things like this, and hopefully your AEA would have somebody that, you know, can make up stickers very easily or posters or something, because again, you can spend a lot of time, and there's some really neat websites out there on how to make posters and stuff like that, but if you can get somebody to do something, you know, like the posters here or the stickers, that's even better. This was something that we did, whoops, I want to go back. Last year we did, actually it's been 2 years ago in the fall. At Cedar Falls we have only get to present to our school board every 5 years, which to me is not enough. I would love to present every year to our school board. So when we do it, we only have you know, like one night to really make an impact, and we do it for K-12. So we had some of our high school journalism class work with all the counselors in the district, and we each had representatives, parents, staff, administrators, students who participated in this video, and we put it together, and it's 10 minutes, and we're not going to watch that. I'm just going to play it for a couple minutes.
My school counselor teaches me about medicine, safety, and problem solving. I think a student counselor is someone who helps you through your life.
School counselors are key leaders who constantly keep a pulse on the entire school community.
A school counselor is someone who listens to people when they're talking, and they can make stuff better.
A school counselor is someone that you can come to get help when your child is registering and you as a parent have questions. A school counselor is someone that you can come and talk to if you have any kind of anxieties about anything that's happening with your child in school.
A counselor is someone students can go to when they need help with some peer issues or they're struggling with their grades.
A school counselor is somebody who cares for you, who will help you with any kind of trouble you have. Anger, anxiety, really anything. You can always get through it here.
A student counselor is someone who is not a bully to kids or teachers.
Cedar Falls counselor is someone who's very empathetic and understanding on like a personal scale. They understand you as a person, not just as a student. They want to relate to you.
Cedar Falls High School counselor is someone that we can rely on as a partner to make sure opportunities reach students. And when we say reach students, we mean reach every student possible in the school.
A school counselor is patient and very kind, and you're very attentive with your grades, and we're very aware of everything.
Cedar Falls High School counselor is somebody who I am able to connect with as a teacher to help students, whether it be with their struggles that might be in my class or another subject area.
The elementary school counselor is someone who works to meet the individual needs of students and works collaboratively with the building principal to help meet those needs and keep the kids doing well.
A CF counselor.
I'm going to stop that there, but I love that video, and it's just it was a lot of fun making it, and it was just a really good way to make sure that those people understood again what our role was, and you put it all together. And especially I like that the fact that this, our broadcast journalism class made that, so then they got a little bit more involved in that. And so think about doing something like that. Anymore that videotaping is like so easy, and you can make a video like so quickly in your programs. So, and you could show other things too. You could get a little bit more specific for stuff that you did. All right. This was something too that we did this year. We actually made little cards with our names and our contact information, and we had ones with the principals' names on it too, and we were going to give those out for sophomore registration, and then of course they got put in underneath the table and totally forgot about it. So we're going to give those out at parent-teacher conferences. But anything you can write down, and what we're going to try to do next year is make it a little bit more informational, and maybe give, again, what is a school counselor's role, and how can they help you. School Counselor Week is February 1st through 5th of 2016, and this is absolutely something that you have to do at least one thing, and that could be take a picture of your group and you with students. Last year we took a picture with our administrators, and you can print the sign or you don't have to print the sign, and just, happy National School Counselors Week. But this is a week that, when we started having these discussions, it was, talking about, well, my school, they bring me cookies that week, or they make a special thing for me that week, and that's great and fine, and you do want some of the, people give you things or kind of honor you that week. That's great. But it's just the best time to do some advocacy and, really show off your program and thank other people for their participation in doing the things to help you. I mean, last year we did something every day where, we brought treats, and there's so many ideas. I know even last year Amy put out a letter to all the ASCA members with lots of ideas of things that you can do to thank your staff, to thank your kids, to thank your students. Usually this falls in the week that we meet with classrooms to do scheduling, so we give out, those stickers, and we give out little candy to the students. We made, for our staff, we had even a little dessert thing. That dessert spelled backwards, or stress spelled backwards is dessert, and we had our conference room all week, or one day, teachers came in and had little cookies and some punch and things like that. So don't make it just about you. Make it about a week of advertising and advocating and celebrating school counselors. And don't feel like, again, that if people aren't doing stuff for you, that's okay. Make them aware of what's going on. And then, again, you could use whatever you're doing to show, hopefully, something that you might be doing in your program that has some data to share. So School Counselors Week is a must. You must do the School Counseling Week. I'm just looking. People are writing some stuff. That's cool on the Padlet. I found that if I celebrate Others Week, like school nurses, social studies, art appreciation month, they are more appreciative of National School Counselor Week. And that's a really good point to make, is that, yeah, if you do some other things, and then they are going to hopefully share back when it's our turn. Yeah, those are good. Those are very good. So make that a point in your plan, in your advocacy plan, to do at least one thing for School Counselor Week, if not more. This was an example. I'm just going to show you a few slides. Every year you should be giving a results report to your staff, and this might be different for different schools. Obviously, we get a couple minutes at the beginning of every school year. We have a staff meeting, and my principal gives us a couple minutes to share some things. So I put together a PowerPoint and share important dates, and it's a Google Doc. This is not totally our whole calendar, but it's one that works for us, and it makes sure that the staff knows, when all the testing dates are, when, special things are for our classrooms, the highlighted things, and it's all pretty simple right here. It gives, like I said, all the whole year in a Google Doc that they can only view. They can't make changes on that, but it is something that you give them at the beginning of the year and have them know what's going to go on. So it's not like you know, you're a week before the testing is like, oh my gosh, you know, we're going to be taking, you know, 150 kids out for PSAT in October. You know, they've known about this, so they can also incorporate it in their planning. So that is one slide that we share. Another slide that we do usually is we share where our students are headed from the year before, and the teachers love this. They love, you know, of course this is more high school, but they love knowing, you know, even the elementary, I think in middle school, teachers would kind of get a kick out of this. And we make a poster and we share again where they're all going. There's a little, we get a little competitive with our private colleges because one of our counselors is a former Wartburg admissions counselor, so we always kind of see, you know, how many how many Wartburg gets and how many Luther gets. But teachers, you know, again, we forget that they're interested in that, and they do have, you know, a little investment in there. We have our seniors do a senior exit interview, and I just picked a couple of questions that again are very interesting to us as we're looking for our goals for this year, and you know what careers that they want to pursue for their future. Obviously, those are some that we really need to pay attention on with and make sure that we're looking at that data. This was the results data from that we had set our goals for last year. Is we wanted to make sure every single senior either took the Compass or the ACT, or you know, like the ASVAB or the NCRC, the work keys, to make sure that they were prepared for whatever step they were taking after high school. And you know, we also had each of these individually, so we knew the names and things like that. But we found a lot about our Compass results, and that a lot of students were taking the Compass, but they weren't passing it. So then when they go to the community college, Hawkeye is our community college that most of our students go to, they were having to pay you know, for the class that didn't get any credit. And so we are actually teaching the math class here at Cedar Falls High School this year that students would have to take without getting any credit at Hawkeye, and we're teaching that because of some of the data that we've collected and the Compass results, and figuring out that a lot of them didn't pass their math test, and then providing that opportunity for them. So these were some things that we shared, and like I said, your information that you share in your results data doesn't have to be, you know, long and detailed. It just has to be some snapshots. And so then our goals this year are to continue to track our seniors. You know, we're going to really talk about our community college seniors, because a lot of times the seniors who say that they're going to go to community college in May, by the time August rolls around, something happened and they don't get there. And so we're going to try to focus on some summer melt, and then also students not meeting the Compass scores. We also, like I said, added the elementary algebra. We're going to do the college application week, FAFSA completion, and college signing day. Through, you know, that's another thing. If you're a high school counselor, or you're even middle school and elementary, we all have things that we can do to, you know, promote college-going atmosphere in our schools. And then we're going to try to involve our staff a little bit more in some of those activities, which, you know, duh, that makes so much sense. But I actually doing the ASCA college career special or college specialist, and you know, I hadn't thought about that as much as that we needed to do that. We also are just going to work on our sophomores to kind of monitor those. This was something that was really interesting that we shared with the staff in the presentation, was the biggest obstacle or difficulty I faced in high school. And you know, we talked about motivation, and I said, granted that this is at the end of the senior year, but there's a lot of things that staff members can gain from this information if you share that with them. This one was, again, sharing with teachers what kind of impact they made. A lot of impact, and sometimes they don't realize the impact that they make. Some of you might know Amanda DeWolf. She was a past ASCA president, and she is a high school counselor at Maquoketa Community School District. She used to be at Clinton, but she is part of the Advocacy Committee, which I didn't mention at the beginning, but we do have a committee of about 35 people right now. I don't think it's quite 35, but there's a couple people mentioned twice in my email, but there's around between 30, little over 30 folks who are on the committee, and hopefully some of them are on the webinar. But that committee you know, we're still working on our role, but you know, kind of with the legislative stuff, with having the lobbyists, we need to make sure that we're represented throughout the whole state, and so we're going to be asking some other folks to join us in there. But Amanda is part of that committee, and she's a past president, and so she just gave some things that they do at Maquoketa. You just, like I said, there's always, everybody always has lots of ideas, and you can send out quarterly newsletters to families. If you do that s'more flyer thing, you can put out a really cool newsletter out there, you know, quarterly, and then you don't always have to change it a lot if you use the same one, because you can just kind of modify it. So those are really good things. Letters to families, you know, emails, you have to be sensitive to making sure all of your families do have email access. I know we're probably need to be a little bit better about that here, because sometimes if they don't get it by email, they might not get that information. So we need to make sure they're also using the phone system, sending postcards, and doing lots of different things. We when we surveyed our seniors last year and asked them what was the best way of communication for them, you know, we have Schoology, because we're a one-to-one school, so we use a lot of Schoology, we use a lot of Gmail, we use a lot of Remind, and I think our lesson learned was that, you know, we need to use a lot of different things, and that's true with your parents as well as your staff and just everybody's. That it's a little bit more work, but it is worth making sure that you get your information out there. Somebody wrote, don't forget to go to the local eggs and issues when legislators come back to their communities and hold public forums. That's a really good point. We're going to talk a little bit about that later, because you need to make sure you're including them in your schools. Let's set a goal at ASCA to have 100% participation in college signing day. That would be really cool. And we did that last year. But we didn't do a lot with that, so I'm going to be looking for more ideas to make sure College Signing Day is something that we really celebrate. I know a lot of schools have done some really cool things. So Amanda has some good things. Here's a couple more things from Amanda. You know, again, making sure you're keeping your superintendent and your school board up to date. This seems trivial, and you think that they know that what you're doing, but they really don't. And so you need to make sure and you know, give them a, you know, even if it's an email, you know, if it's a meeting time that you have, to let them know what's going on. But make sure you're sharing things so that, you know, if they get questions or whatever, they can always, you know, justify the things that you're doing. She said, you know, we advocated for your name change. Finally have our administrator saying the correct title, and changed all the letterhead, email signatures, all that good stuff. They volunteered speaking at Kiwanis, Optimus, American Legion. You know, those are great ideas to go and share, because a lot of the folks that are in those groups are a little bit older, and they might have, you know, their idea of school counselors is what they had in high school, which is probably a lot different than it is now. So yeah, so those are just some ideas that I wanted to give you. This is another thing that we started with the Advocacy Committee. It's the School Counselor Advocacy Effect blog. And in the front it says, you know, if we don't advocate for ourselves, no one else will. If we do not define our profession, someone else will. And this blog is created to inspire advocacy. And I've written a couple entries to it, and I'm just, it's kind of great, because I've been asking people to share things, and they have been awesome in sharing different things. So this first blog, I just put it out last weekend by Amy Hospodarsky, and she is the ASCA president-elect. She was also the elementary VP for 4 years, but she gives a great analogy to, we need to make advocacy, replace it with show and tell time. And she shares about her brother bringing her to school for show and tell in elementary. It's kind of comical. But she gives some great things about when you go to conferences and things, you know, how to make sure and use social media to let people know what's going on. pictures. You know, one of the things I found about like our Twitter account, it becomes kind of like our little album, you know, a photo album of things that you do throughout the year, because you can look back on all the pictures and say, yeah, these are the things that we did, and it's just very helpful. So this is a great one to look at. Amy has one. We also, Sarah Majoris, who is now the new elementary counselor VP, and she was one of the elementary counselors of the year last year. She wrote one, Advocacy Mindset, which I thought was really great, because again, how, you know, mindsets is a really huge thing right now, and she, you know, kind of talked about the different things that you can do and how we need to think about it as a mindset and change our mindset for it. There's also some other things. I've shared some things that we've done in there. Shared just a couple letters. Sue Farron shared her journey. We also had a great entry was by Matthew Beck. He is a grad student at Iowa, and he shares a really great story that he had to go through as a school counselor in Illinois. So please look through that and know that this is going to continue. I've got about 3 people lined up to share their stories in the blog, and we just want to make sure that everybody knows that that's there. And I know I'm running out of time. I just got a couple more slides. This is the some more, and I won't go to that, but here's the nice thing about the some more, and you can go again, see how many people have visited, and it'll show analytics to help you kind of figure out different things. Remember that when you are doing advocacy, it is about the student. It's not about you, and I know that that sounds kind of like, well, what is she talking about? But, you know, again, we have to make sure our message is positive, and it's about students, and it's not about us being overworked or, you know, us having too much on our plate and sounding like said we're whiny or complaining. We have to make sure it's about the student and the effect that we're making, you know, on the student. So that's one of the slides. ASCA Mindsets and Behaviors, and if you haven't heard about this, it's something that ASCA has implemented. It is, instead of the ASCA standards now, it's through Mindsets and Behaviors, and it is really, it's actually a really good way to set things up, because it kind of divides them into 3 domains. There's going to be a lot more on the mindsets and the behaviors, but I know Amy Hulse from AEA1, if you're an AEA1 person, she is awesome, and she sets up trainings and different things. But she said, every place I go, she said, I carry these mindsets. And I said, well, you know, school counselors have, you know, these mindset standards, and you know, it's 3 pages. It's 3 pages that you can, or 4 pages that you can give to people and just share with them and let them know what's going on. So that is something that there will be more training on, but you should be working in your program on making sure you're transferring things to the mindset standards and putting everything together for your program. ASCA, the lobbyist firm, the Capital Group, know that our level of advocacy in the legislative realm has gone up a step because of the lobbyists, and they're going to be at the conference, and again, we all need to be, you know, making sure that we're participating and doing the things that we can for the legislative efforts, because that's, again, a little higher level, but it's so important. And just the last couple slides are, you know, be bold, be brave, and be you. What I'd like to do is have people write on the Padlet maybe some things that you are going to be doing that you're kind of challenged to do, because, you know, if you write it down, you can you're a little bit more apt to do it. And if you share that on the Padlet, and then at the ASCA conference, we're just going to have a little bit of fun and try to maybe, you know, get, you know, people let me know who they are that are writing that down. We'll have a little bit of fun to share advocacy efforts. I just want to thank all of you for what you do. You know, that this was the slide we used for the staff too. You know, we always take for granted the things that deserve the most gratitude, and again, nobody's doing this just because they're looking for the thanks all the time, and we sometimes don't get as much maybe gratitude as we deserve, but you know, it is something that our job is one of the greatest jobs in the world, but sometimes it can be very challenging. And so I do appreciate everything that all of you are doing, and I want to remind you again to make sure that you're taking care of yourself in the whole realm of the everyday stuff that you're doing. So that is all I have. I know it's God, I think I can talk for a whole hour without hardly even taking a breath. But there's some really good stuff on the Padlet. And like I said, I would encourage if you guys, if you don't have the Padlet thing, maybe Britt can put that out again. But you know, hopefully you got some ideas here to do some advocacy, just everyday kinds of things, incorporate it with your program, because like I said, that's really important that you you're not just doing things, you know, to do things, that you're incorporating it with your program and showing people what you're doing and how it's making a difference with students, so that they can, you know, achieve at a better level and just do better in school. If you have questions about things specifically, you know, you can look at my email. Is on the ASCA website, or it's under Cedar Falls High School, under our cute little poster there. But please contact me with questions or anything. I'll be at the ASCA conference on November 2nd and 3rd, and if you haven't registered for that, it's going to be another great conference. We have great keynote speakers, and like I said, Ryan Wise is going to be there on Tuesday, the new director of the Department of Education, so you want to come and hear what he has to say. But we look forward to seeing you, and we thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you everyone for participating. We did record today's session, so if you want to go back and review anything from today, it will be on the ASCA website by the end of the week. Again, thank you very much and have a great day.